more on this, Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me in the studio. Good morning, Chika.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm looking at all these numbers, and it seems like there's had a lot of changing. Can you break down the Access Bank data? What's happening with the company?
Again, as we've been talking about in this program, this is the earnings season for the banks. You do recall that among the big five, already two have released the results, Zenith and Guaranty Trust Bank. So Access Bank and the United Bank of Africa have just released theirs. Similarities, the kind of environment that the other two experience is what these two experience also. Marginal growth in gross earnings. UBA had about 7.1% growth in gross earnings, while Access Bank grew about 15%, driven by a massive growth in their net interest income. In addition, you will find that there are a lot of similarities between the UBA result and Access Bank results. Even though Access Bank had bigger figure in gross earnings, on the PBT level, it was also much better. And UBA just had a marginal growth in profit before tax of 2.4%, while Access Bank had about 32%. Access Bank profit before tax grew because they had a decent, almost 30 billion right back on loans that provided for before.
They didn't 30 million right back on those loans?
About 30 billion right back on loans that they didn't need to provide for in this year. So that helped in lifting their profit before tax to 103 billion. And then if you look at the UBA, UBA earnings grew because of the fact that their total deposit base grew by 23%. So the asset base grew by 20%. You remember UBA is in 20 African countries, and then in also about 3 or 4 geographies outside Africa. Now, those countries in Africa, outside Africa, contribute about 40% of their profit before tax and a third of their balance sheet. So UBA, now is deepening their presence in these African countries. So these African countries now are contributing more to their earnings. Now, the other thing I need to point out on Access Bank is Access Bank, on the profitability I've talked about on balance sheet. Well, the loans advances grew barely by 3.5%. In the UBA, it's also very barely 3.6%, almost similar. You remember, we talked about this program again, the environment was not good for lending. Indeed, the first two banks we analyzed, Zenith and GTB, their loan books fell. Whereas this Access Bank and UBA, it was just marginal growth in their loan books because of the environment that we had in Nigeria. And customer deposits for Access Bank grew by 14.3%, and that for UBA grew by 22.5%. Again, driven by what I told you earlier, the expansion in their business in Africa. Now, but one of the critical areas I want to look at, is the issues. Those talk about not their results in the quantum terms now, but how effective have they been in managing their books. Now, look at return on equity, for example. When we did GTB and Zenith, return on equity for GTB was 32%.
32%?
Yeah, Zenith was 24%. But look at this one now. Even though GTB is smaller than Access Bank and UBA in total assets, the return on equity for Access Bank is 19%. Compare that to GTB of, I said 32%. So what it means is that if an investor gives GTB 100 naira, GTB will return to them 32 naira. If the same investor gives Access Bank 100 naira, that investor will be returned 19 naira. So you can see the relativity, the more efficiency. The other thing that's important there also is what I call the return on assets. Now, the asset is large. How do you sweat it? How do you use it to make money? And for GTB, for example, that I analyzed before, it was about 5.6%. Zenith was 3.3%. But look at Access Bank, barely 1.9%. UBA, return on assets, 1.6%, very similar to Access Bank. So you see that even though they had a bigger size, they're not sweating their assets as GTB and Zenith did that.
So these other banks are working a little bit harder to squeeze out more profit and higher return on investment.
Yes.
Did UBA officially lose its position as the leading Pan-African bank?
No. Indeed, it's not. It didn't. It hasn't done that. On gross earnings for the 4 big banks we've already analyzed, UBA is number 3. So they're not doing badly. On the 4, there are 5 big banks in Nigeria. Out of that, UBA is number 3. On profit before tax, they did very well also. So they're not losing it. What's happened is that increasingly, their investment in all the 20 African countries are beginning to yield results for them. Before, some of them used to make losses. But last year, that were this year we're analyzing now, they contribute about 40% of their earnings. So with time, they're going to earn more, and the impact, the momentum of these earnings will, transfer UBA to among the top of the banking industry in Nigeria.
It's very exciting. So how do these banks compare with the results of other banks in Nigeria?
I would like to look at the return on two parameters, key parameters. On size, I remember in this program I mentioned before, I said, even though GTB, out of the big five, looks like it's going to be the smallest, on efficiency basis, GTB is becoming the most efficient. Now, something is coming up, a pattern is coming up there. Return on equity, GTB and Zenith on a class on its own, 32% and 24%. Whereas Zenith and Access and UBA is 19.4 and 15.6, almost two-thirds of what the other banks are having. So you find efficiency. GTB and Zenith are more efficient than these two other banks. So on size, you'll find that Access Bank has the biggest has the big size, number 2 in the industry, but on their returns, they're not making as much as they should. So comparatively, I will say on size basis, now gross earnings, Zenith is number 1, based on the result published. Access number 2, UBA number 3, and GTB number 4.
So Access is number 2. What's responsible for the unusual spike in profits for Access Bank?
What happened was for Access Bank was that, on the profit, at the profit before tax level, as I said before, their loan loss provision fell by 20 billion.
Ah, I see. The loan loss provision.
Fell by 20 billion. So compared to what they did last time. And then at the profit after tax level. So let me look at UBA and Access Bank. Listen to this. At profit before tax level, they were almost at the same profit. Now, at the profit after tax level, Access Bank, as you said, overtook UBA. Because whereas UBA paid a tax of 28 billion this past year, Access Bank paid only a tax of 8 billion.
Only a tax of 8
billion. I guess they have to manage their tax properly. So that accounted for the disparity in their profit, profit after tax.
It's always good chatting with you. Our business analyst, Chika Mbonu. Thank you again.
Thank you, Duarte.